We go. Welcome back, gang. I have a special guest today. This is someone who I have walked with him and processed with him and talked through this a 14-year journey when I first met him through his sort of medical journey. I have on our call today Dr. Jimmy Berthaud. I met him back in 2008, 9-ish, and I've been on the journey with him, or at least talked out some of the journey with him for the last 14 years. So you're about to listen to an amazing story of a man who's now a neurologist down in Texas, and it's going to be a great time today. So, Dr. Berthaud, thank you so much for being on the call. I'm glad you're here.
You're welcome.
Hmm. All right. Well, um, everyone listening, there is a context, so there may be some missing pieces on your behalf, but on my side, there's a context. So I'll try to bring you all into the context. And so, Dr. Berthaud, question for you. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about what you do in the present, and then take us back to this place where, in some of our past conversations, you talked about how um, and you can bring some clarity for me because I may not remember all the details, but how the mom and dad had desired or known for you to be a medical doctor as well. And so, and you could talk as much as you're comfortable sharing that process, but tell us some of the things you do now, some of the work you do, and then take us back into that story about what brought you to this place.
Sure. So right now I'm technically a neurohospitalist. So what I do is I primarily see patients who have neurological diseases in the hospital setting only. So that can be anything from stroke to seizures to people being confused, brain tumors, things like that, just to give an example. When I was little, when I was born, there was sort of an emphasis on me going into the medical profession by my parents. Um, some of that is sort of rooted in kind of my family background, and my mom's side is different than my dad's side. So my mom's side, my grandparents, were a little bit more well off. My grandfather was in the military, was able to bring in money to the family. My grandmother was more of a homemaker, stay-at-home wife kind of sort of deal. And they had 6 children. And then they sort of knew that they wanted the family to kind of grow and be, quote, of prominence by having someone go into the medical profession. So my aunt is also a physician. She's a dermatologist. So she was the first one to do it, but they kind of wanted to see that grow beyond her generation into mine. That side of the family is very different. They really came more out of poverty. They didn't really have much growing up. Both my grandfather and grandmother on my dad's side were teachers. So money wasn't as much there. So for them, seeing the medical profession was more of, okay, we need to come out of poverty through education. So that was much more of a very strong prominence in that side of the family. And then kind of when my parents came together, that seeing those two sides come together through them was then they said, okay, now when I was born, it was like, okay, we're going to really try to push him into the profession because my father was already a physician at the time. So they really wanted to see that sort of lineage, if you will, kind of grow through me. So even when I was born, that it was almost spoken into me, to be honest.
Right.
But over time, I was very resistant to it. I didn't always accept it. And that was a little bit more when I kind of got older, junior high, high school. I started to really push back and even rebel against it.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that in the past conversation of just this rebellious stage. I'm curious, because I remember one of our conversations, it seems like the sciences, the medical profession came easy for you in some regard, right? Am I right in saying that?
Yes, it did.
Okay. So it comes easy for you. It's something that you're able to kind of, it's almost like, yeah, I have a family full of chemists, and so chemistry, someone naturally just came easily. There's a certain way I thought about it, on and on. But in your case, you just mentioned this sort of rebelling against it. Take us to that place to where here's you had a knack for the sciences, some of the medical world, thinking through the stuff was easy for you, but then take us to this place of as you call it, the rebellion. What was that in high school, college? I couldn't remember the time period.
I would say more prominently in high school was probably
Okay.
the highest point. College was kind of when I shifted.
Yeah.
So, in high school, you want to fit in, you want to be cool, and being in the sciences was not considered to be the cool thing to do. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, you're not going to be popular. Girls wouldn't like you. So I really wanted to just have nothing to do with the medical profession.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to do music. I wanted to focus on that and make money through that. Being unguided and not even following God or even being in the will of God at all was like,
Mm-hmm.
but that on top of that is, it just never worked out. It didn't matter what I did, how far I rebelled against it. Those doors would literally close in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of my high school just trying to do it, and trying to go against it. It wasn't until I came to college, literally the first year, my freshman year, I was still trying to rebel slightly, but
Mm-hmm.
then I realized at one point I was like, you know what? This music thing isn't for me. I ended up not even doing well in the music theory class at all. I had to drop out of that. Then I tried music business. I didn't realize I was like, you know what? I don't like business. It's not for me. I'm not a business minded guy. And again, I ended up back in science. Even my parents were like, hey, you're major biology, blah, blah, blah. You're gonna take this biology course. So I took a biology 101 course, ended up getting an A. So I was like, all right, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and major biology. I said to myself, okay, if it doesn't work out the first semester, I'm out. I'm changing my major ASAP,
Mm-hmm.
like no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So then comes sophomore year of college, I'm going through the sciences classes, and all of a sudden I'm doing well. And I'm just like, okay, well, this is a little strange. Like I wasn't expecting to do this well, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And my GPA literally went from a 3.2 to a 3.92.
Oh, wow.
That was the highest jump of GPA I'd ever experienced. So I said, well, since I did well this semester, I'm just going to keep going.
Huh. So it wasn't a thing where you had this big epiphany or this big sort of God spoke to you and said, Jimmy, you need to go to do this, to do that. It's like,
Oh no.
circumstances really brought you to that place where you weren't doing well musically in music. Did you find yourself not liking it, or did you just not do well? I mean, what was it that I guess I'm trying to tease out what were those experiences that kind of had you not do well? Was the classes hard? Was it something there? Do you remember any of that?
It was more of the actual topic
Mm-hmm.
of the business specifically just wasn't for me. It didn't interest me. There was nothing natural about it. I would have to really work at
Okay.
it to be
Uh-huh.
good at it. Versus the sciences, I don't have to work at it. It's
That's
much more natural for me. Business is
that's
not.
huge. That's huge, bro. You just triggered some stuff that I think will help some of just our listening audience. And sometimes when I'm coaching people, I think about that. What is most natural in you about you? And those are the things God wants to breathe on. Because it's almost like if I'm naturally right-handed and I now try to enhance my left hand, it's going to take a lot of effort to become ambidextrous. And
Mhm.
so it sounds like for you, there's almost like you're trying to work on this left hand and but you're naturally good in the sciences with your bear with my word picture, the right hand, and it just made sense. Wow. So then you get into the sciences, GPA changes, you started getting better or better grade wise. Now remind me again, you went to I know Belmont University in Nashville is a really good music school, right?
Correct.
Okay, because you went to Belmont. Now, um, but then are they strong in the sciences or
They are.
okay. All right. So
Yes.
so you got your biology degree from Belmont, right?
Correct.
So
Uh-huh.
then what shifted after kind of okay, got your biology degree. What happened next? I know there's an Ivy League school journey there too, but I don't know remember that being medical for part of the medical world, right?
So I went to graduate school at Columbia University in New
Okay.
York City. I was there for 2 years.
Hmm. And would you study there if you don't mind me asking?
So I studied, the first year was nutrition, human nutrition.
Okay.
In the second year, I did a Master of Public Health.
So then what triggered you to say, okay, I've got my biology degree. Why not straight to med school? Or to kind of what was that story in between there? You went to Columbia, got those two. Did you get two masters or
I
just
did two
okay?
masters.
Tell us a little
I,
bit more about that.
yeah, so I actually didn't even get into medical school the first time I applied. The year I was trying to get in, it was very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do as well as I thought I would. So my dad was like, okay, well, as a backup, you can get a master's degree. And I ended up applying to the nutrition program at Columbia, got
Mm-hmm.
in, and at that particular time, you know, that was a huge, huge door open. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I can go back high school, junior high. I literally never thought I would ever get into Ivy League school ever in my life
Mm-hmm.
until that day, end of senior year, and I got the acceptance letter. Like, I mean, this revolutionized my whole life, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, my dad was very supportive. He went to Columbia as well, graduated in 1994. So of course, he's very cool with me going there.
Mm-hmm.
I go to graduate school. I spent 2 years there, and then after that point, that's when I finally got into medical school. That was in 2008.
So, okay, so I didn't realize there was a first attempt for medical school, and it seemed and that didn't work out. But then now, would you, in your estimation, your understanding, would that master's at Columbia, do you think that aided in the next process, or do you think it was a timing matter? What do you think? Why do you think, from your understanding, that first journey didn't work out, and then this sort of sidetrack of the journey, going to Columbia, getting your master's there, and then now applying again, you get in. What do you think happened between the first and the second time?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Just
I've
curious.
actually never really thought about this very much, you know.
It's okay.
Um, I think initially, when I first started my major in biology when I was in college, I wasn't saved yet. I wasn't really following God much. And I finally came to Lord 2005,
Hmm.
but I'd already taken the MCAT. I already, started to go through the application process. So I think maybe it was just more of me, okay, really trusting God, really leaning on God,
Hmm.
really getting closer to God, which I did in the years following.
Hmm.
That's when things started to kind of move a bit more. So that's one. The major thing with being in Columbia, it helped me intellectually because I
Hmm.
was able to get through the first year of med school pretty easily. Because
Okay.
I already had so much schooling by that point that was more challenging than just college level. I was able to get through the first year of school pretty easily and just go from there. So I would say it's kind of both those things in combination.
That's huge. So knowing the Lord, getting more intimate with the Lord, and the almost what I use in the book, I talk about muscle or just muscle memory, this idea of there's a training that happened to prepare you for medical school, or in your case, to prepare you for medical school. Saying, now, was it really that significant difference, the Belmont education versus the Columbia education? Like
Oh, dramatic. Oh
oh,
yeah.
really?
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And so it sounds like this muscle memory really, well, I'm using the term muscle memory. This training really enhanced your capacity to handle medical school. So, and you mentioned first year specifically. Did something shift in the second and third year? Was it even more harder,
Mm,
or was
not
it?
not really. I mean, it's I sort of just got through those
Mhm.
years, but it's really kind of the first year because you're basically going from like being able to have a topic talk to you in a week, let's say in college, they could
Mhm.
do it in 20 into medical school. So
In
the
what?
pace is they could do it in 20 minutes
Oh,
in medical
wow.
school. They go way, way faster. So you really have to be on the ball. So
Hmm.
graduate school kind of helps you deal with that pace
That makes
specifically.
sense. That makes sense. Because I'm always been admired by your story. Again, this is 14 years between us that I'm like, wow, this, and I didn't realize some of these details of going from your undergraduate process to then your not being able to get into your medical school first time, getting saved, coming to the Lord, getting into a Ivy League school, increasing the pace of education and the quality or the just the intensity of education, which trains you there. And then you have another application into medical school, get in, and first year was you were able to handle it. And then you kind of coasted. It seems like second and third year, just kind of you were used to the journey. Now, you went to Meharry for your medical school training. That was a 4-year program, right? Is that right?
Yes, 4
4
years. Huh?
4 years. So then you graduate, and I remember parts of our story. This is what's also interesting, especially for those that are listening in. You have this journey where, of course, I know there's that matching time, that time to match from
Mhm.
your first choices and on and on. And I remember that time when we kind of walked through this thought of um, not getting your top, but yet there's kind of been this beautiful story that's gotten you to the place where you are. It may not seem beautiful, especially at the time, it didn't seem beautiful.
Oh yeah, it was rough. Oh man,
But
that's
tell
for
us,
sure.
yeah, tell us about that story where, for those, especially those, I'm looking forward to. those medical professionals that may hear this, especially those that are, I've got a friend right now who's in med school and hasn't gone through the matching process yet. But walk us through the journey from when you now at your fourth year trying to match up with your residency, all that stuff that happens, and then kind of the process that took you to different parts of the country to get to where you are now. You,
Yeah. So, at the time, I had already interviewed mostly on the East Coast and in the South for residency program.
mhm,
So the day that you find out where you're gonna, well, whether or not you even matched in the first place, I remember I went to this place near the hospital, opened the computer, and I saw I got nothing, and I was like devastated.
mm,
So I spend a week, trying to go through it. I have faculty helping me, Dean Williams, who's not alive anymore. She was helping, well, actually, she had already passed before that. Sorry. But I had another dean person helping me during that time. And all of a sudden, this opportunity at Tulane opened up. And they had sort of seen my application. They were able to give me a position. So that's how I was able to get that. And actually,
mhm,
that happened on my birthday
okay.
when I got that
Oh, that's
specific
right.
position.
I remember that.
And I ended up moving down to New Orleans.
Mhm.
Spent 4 years of residency training.
Yeah. So then, and this was crazy. I'm just thinking about this. I think for the first time, this theme of since you gave me the insight about after undergrad, here's sort of this not getting in, redirecting up to Columbia, and then you get in, go from there, and then this situation. Now you're done with your medical training, and now you're going to residency, and there was a almost like a block again, not getting into the place you desired, and then there's this kind of redirection. I know during this redirection with Tulane, were there things at Tulane that prepped you for your next transition when you did that program up in it was UVA, right?
Yes.
University, yeah,
Uh-huh.
UVA. Tell me more about the tell me if there's and this, some of these things I didn't fully prepare you for, but if do you feel like certain things at Tulane prepared you for UVA?
Oh, yeah, that's for sure. I will say when I was there, I spent 4 years training there.
Mm-hmm.
You get used to dealing with a lot of very sick patients, patients who don't have, much in terms of, socioeconomic status and that whole sort of thing. And you deal with a lot of stroke patients. You deal with a lot of patients with just overall cardiovascular problems. So by the time I came to UVA, I was very comfortable dealing with stroke patients, like
Mm-hmm.
super comfortable. Like it made my fellowship way easier. There are some
Okay.
things that during the fellowship that changed a little bit in terms of actually treating stroke, but before that, it made that whole fellowship way, way easier.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to get through that process with really no problem.
Yeah, that's great because it seems like again, I use when I think about the frameworks I'd placed in the book was that here's Moses as a king's grandson. He's being prepared for leadership, and then he becomes a shepherd. He's prepared to take care of people in these two phases of his life, and so then now this calling place of leading the people of Israel. He's got the muscle memory, and so it sounds like that's part of your story too. There's this kind of preparation phases that you had that prepared you for the next step. Then going back to your story, so there's UVA, and then you shift to Michigan. And in this journey, do you recall things that prepared you from UVA to go to Michigan?
It's a good question. I never really even thought about this much, to be honest with you. Not so much
Okay.
as I can tell you specifically,
Mhm. Yeah.
I sort of just applied there. I mean, I had some connections between the two places,
Hmm.
so that made that transition a little bit easier.
Hmm.
But aside from that, not a whole lot.
Okay. And that's helpful. But then there's something unique though. Didn't you get some teaching opportunities at Michigan that you hadn't had before? Is that right?
I did. I did. So I used to run the educational activities for the residency program there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I did
which
that
is
for about 2.5 years. Two to two
yeah,
and a half years.
yeah. Because I know sometimes when we processed in the past, there were just I kept sensing the educator desire, the heart to kind of want to work with some other residents and just train and do some things like that based on your strengths and your wiring. Um, okay, but so now this teaching opportunity now has got me thinking about the shift down to Texas, where your first place, what city again was you were in Dallas,
Houston.
Houston first. That's right.
Houston.
So now did Michigan prepare you, this teaching experience or this anything from Michigan or UVA or even Tulane, any of that prepare you for your first experience in Houston? Do you remember any kind of preparation or connection there?
Not in this particular case. I think Houston was kind of its own thing
Hmm.
entirely, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm just curious. I'm digging because this is interesting. I'm trying because I think the first time in some of our past conversations, I personally haven't made these connections, thinking there's preparation here somewhere. And but now bring it back to what city are you in again? You're in
San Antonio.
San Antonio. Yep. Okay. Make sure I had it right. Now what you're doing? Can you say you are in let's just say here's my word picture, are you in a sweet spot or in a kind of like a this fits for me, I love what I'm doing, or would you say you're still in another phase that potentially it'll go to something else? I'm curious as comfortable you want to share in that. How do you feel, how you feel about this current place you're in?
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love what I do.
Okay.
There's not even a doubt or or anything, hesitation or anything like that whatsoever. I mean, I absolutely love what I do. And I do it
Yeah.
with the highest ease I've ever had. Ever.
The fact that it's easy, that's huge statement you're saying. It ease. Do you feel like it's become natural now, like a natural
Oh yeah.
muscle memory?
Oh
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And do you feel like you've what was prayed or spoken over you when you were a child? Do you feel like you're walking in it now?
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's amazing. See, this your story is just warming my heart right now because sometimes I have these frameworks that I'll create, and that's what produced this book, Wrestling with
Mhm.
Your Calling. And I'm listening to you. I'm thinking, wow, you are in some of the frameworks that I thought about. You're walking in that now. This there's choices before you, like consider Moses' story. Here
Mhm.
he is before he was even born. God had a desire for him. The mom saw something special about him, hides him for 3 months. How you hide a baby, I don't understand all that. And then he has this unique whole read out of being drawn out of the water experience with, becomes a king's grandson and all these things about him. And it all just kind of plays itself out in a beautiful way. And I think Moses naturally was doing what he
Mhm.
it does. And I'm hearing you speaks very similar. It's become so natural. Even when you try to do things, let me ask you this. This was kind of popped up as I was talking about it. Were there moments, and I would wonder if your undergraduate experience ties to this, were there moments where you try to do your own thing and it just backfired? Even, I know you told the story about trying to go into music and trying to do business. Were there other moments where you tried to do your own thing and it kind of backfired on you instead of kind of being led through the process? I don't know if that question is clear, but
Mm,
I'm just curious of your thought. You can wrestle with me about this. I'm having a thought because this is fascinating to me.
yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out how to answer the question.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
I mean,
because go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I would say the only time that really happened was when I tried to do my own thing, like if it wasn't an inherent talent or gift. If it
Mm,
was something I would try to do that I didn't naturally have,
hmm.
that's when it would backfire for sure.
Okay.
Not even a question.
Wow.
The rest of it
That's,
was a natural talent or gift, that wouldn't happen. And
yeah.
even then, it would be kind of rare and a bit more
Hmm.
short lived. But every time I would try to do something that was not a natural gift or talent, forget it.
You know what you're doing, bro? You are debunking the cultural norm that says whatever your weaknesses are, fix your weaknesses so you can be this well-rounded person and have all this stuff together. And
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
hearing, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can try, but it just never works out. What you're naturally gifted at is what you're naturally gifted at. I mean, you can't deny it even if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. Listening honest, I've got to tell you this. I'm having a moment because I'm thinking to myself, I did not tell Jimmy to say these things. I did not prepare him in this way. He
Nope.
said, but it's like it's so reinforcing something that for years I've been thinking, why are we spending all this time trying to become quote unquote ambidextrous, fix up the weak side to make sure everything's equal, trying to become this well-rounded person in all these areas instead of finding and embracing our lane, our niche, our strengths.
Mhm.
And that's what I hear from you, bro, in this. I'm stirred right now listening to you because I didn't realize some of these. I'm making connections for the first time we've talked. many times over 14 years. I'm thinking, wow.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you say, new medical student, new professional person, whoever it may be, feels some of the things that you have felt? They are, mom and dad have had a desire for them to be whatever.
Mhm.
um, it's a natural knack for them, like your story. They go off to undergrad, they try all these different majors, doesn't work. They end up saying, okay, let me default back to this. And then they go on say they're on a similar trajectory, or possibly going on a trajectory like you went on. What will be some words of encouragement that you would say for um, a person maybe listening in on this podcast, or just some encouragement to say, what are some things you learned on the journey that you just learned that are now great lessons for you now? And you can reinforce something you may have already said, but I'm just curious if you have any words of encouragement or anything bubbles up as I ask that question.
I would say honestly, at the end of the day, if you're to decide to go into the medical profession, you have to choose it for yourself. You have to choose it between yourself and God. I'm going to put it that way. That
Mhm.
if you don't make that decision between you and God, it's going to be a problem
Mm.
because ultimately, their parents can push you into it and tell you this and blah blah blah. But ultimately, you're going to have to go through the school. You have to go through the training. You have to do all the years of time to make it all the way through.
Mhm.
So you have to really, seek God in this process and really make sure, okay, Lord, are you really calling me to do this, or this is my parents telling me to do it, and da 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 da, right?
Mhm.
So I think if you do that, connect with God, at that level, I think everything else will fall into place. I think that happened with me because I had to make this decision. I had to really think, okay, am I really called to do this? Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to pursue this? Knowing all the school I have to go through, the training, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
I had to wrestle with God with this. Like, okay, Lord, you really called me to do this. So, because if not, it's like I'm gonna have to face my parents and tell them, hey, I'm gonna do something else. But
Mhm.
ultimately, under God's grace, it ended up working out nicely that He did call me into it, and everything kind of fell into place from there. But I
Powerful.
would say having that connection,
Mhm.
that linkage is
Mhm.
is vital. You have to have it
Mhm.
because not only do you have to go through school and the training, you're gonna have to deal with life and death situations, challenging situations with patients, just to generally speak on that. And you definitely need God through those situations. Like I can tell you that personally right now.
Yeah. Can remember some of our conversations through that journey. Just hard moments where you just kind of had to, during those hard moments, some of those things we talked about. I'm not going to bring that up for our call now, but did you have to default back to, I made a decision, this sort of heart agreement you made with the Lord? Is that kind of
Yeah,
what kept you through that journey, those
yeah,
journeys?
oh yeah, many many times.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mm. So what I'm hearing from you is it doesn't generally, um, you've got to commit, make a decision with the Lord, you and the Lord, a person committing. And then when those hard moments come, remember what was committed, what was agreed upon,
yeah.
and go from there. That's huge, bro. Well, man, thank you, bro. You have I'm deeply encouraged because it's even challenging me too, thinking about what commitments I've made with the Lord and how He's called me to do the things I'm called to do. And when I'm having those hard moments, having to simply just make a decision, excuse me, remember the decision that was made, and
Yeah.
verifying that I've made the decision with Him and that I'm going to continue to go forward. And then when hard moments come, remembering the decision and to keep pressing through it all. Because we all have our different things, but what you just said today was huge. Because for those, again, those listening, this is a 14-year journey. I've seen Jimmy through this journey. This is um not a I'm just interviewing for today. This is 14 years of perspective of, I remember the hard moments and I remember all those things. And so it's beautiful just to see you now and see where you are. Would you say, looking back, it's worth it? It
Oh,
was worth it.
absolutely,
That's amazing.
absolutely.
That's great. That's great. That's great. Well, bro, thanks for your time, man. I'm deeply encouraged. I trust others are encouraged and they're feeling activated, cultivated, or empowered to reach their potential. And when I think about your story, I just see how you were stretched through so many things and how there's your potential. You're reaching it. Now, let me. It's got so many questions for you, but I do need to kind of lessen our time. But one question let's see if I can tease this out real quick. Is um, it was about you being stretched. When you look back from where you were 18, 19, maybe 17-year-old Jimmy, and you
Mhm.
look at where you are now, could you see yourself then where you are now? Did you have vision to say, oh, I want to eventually be this?
No way. Not even by a long shot, even if I wanted to.
Wow.
Oh no, not at all.
And can you say that the life became almost a trainer to kind of draw you to the place you are now, where you had to be stretched and you had to be exercised and you had to be challenged to get to this place? Do you think out of your own efforts you could have done where you accomplished where you've accomplished, or do you feel like you've been trained to get to this place?
Well, I've been trained. No, there's no way I could have done it by myself. Mm-mm. Practically, probably almost impossible, to be honest. No way.
Again, I'm fascinated because you're reinforcing your story is reinforcing things that I meditate on, process, coach people about, and I'm listening to you saying, "Wow," because I don't believe as an ex-athlete, college athlete, I'm like I couldn't have reached certain levels without people pushing me, helping me
Right.
get to that place, and you're just kind of reinforcing that as a, as a. Now, remember your neuro. What again? You said
So
hospitalist?
I'm a neural hospitalist.
Neurohospitalist. Now, in layman's terms, if someone called you a neurologist, that would be sufficient generally. But
Yes, correct. Uh-huh.
but because you're in a hospital, you're considered a neurohospitalist.
Because I work primarily in a hospital setting.
Got it. Okay, thanks for that clarity. Also, guys, this guy has taught me so much about the medical process. I would ask him question after question about, okay, so what's this like when you match here? And sorry, I'm rabbit trailing. I'm just kind of having a moment right now, thinking, trying to get clarity. But, anyways, with this in mind, gang, I want you all to just consider what you just heard today from Dr. Berthaud. There's something powerful about God has a story for our lives that doesn't always we don't always get the choices per se. In his case, he's talking about how mom and dad and family dynamics of past had a framework that I believe God knew before its time to really bring Jimmy into the place he is, and how the Lord, through various circumstances, kept him on the path. And that's the beauty of this calling journey. It's an invitation to God's story. And Jimmy's story, Dr. Bartow's story, just like anybody else's, it has past, it has context, it has a history that goes beyond his own decision making in life. But then when he comes aware of it, he had to make his own decisions to what he kind of identified today. So you guys be encouraged by what you heard from Dr. Berthaud. Be encouraged. I hope those that are medical professionals here for the future will really be inspired by Dr. Berthaud's story, and others that may not relate to the actual medical field. You can at least relate to the principles of you have to make decisions. There are times where you may wrestle. There are times will be hard, but you'll eventually bounce back to those places to say, I've decided this, and the Lord would desire this of me. And we start to hang on there. So well, I'll leave it at that. Well, Dr. Patel, Jimmy, thank you so much, bro, for just your time today. Thank you for joining in on this Wrestling with Your Calling with Dr. Conrad podcast. Any final comments or statements you want to make to the listening audience or anything before I say my thank yous and let you go?
I'll just say I hope this story kind of inspires people, encourages people out there. I mean, I literally came from not knowing anything. I was 18, didn't really have much, did all right in high school, to now having, schooling and training, and really gone through a long process to make it to where I am today. And all of it is credit back to the Lord
That's
above all
great.
else.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks for your time, bro. Thanks for your thoughts, your insights, your encouragement, your story, giving us a piece of your life and your story and your heart so that we can be encouraged. And so thanks for your time. And I really appreciate that, sir.
All right.
All right. Let me stop the recording real quick.